Hi, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia. Stick around for the next episode of Working Our Scraps Off. We're going to be turning scraps into one of the easiest scrap quilt blocks you're ever going to make, and then turning it into the quilt behind me. Hi everybody, welcome into my next episode of Working Our Scraps Off. Today we are making probably one of the easiest quilt blocks, scrappy quilt blocks you're ever going to make. Here it is. It's a Wonky Friendship Star block. A few years ago I did a Wonky Sawtooth Star quilt if you've been on my Instagram, you've seen pictures of it. Turned out really nicely. I was really happy with it, and I always wanted to make another one, but I didn't want to do the same thing. I always like to change it up a little bit, and my scraps are again beginning to overflow. I just can't seem to get on top of them, so I decided that I needed to make another scrappy quilt, and this was it. So easy to make. Dig through any colors you want. I went with blacks and whites. You can see behind me I had gotten a bunch of yardage of various blacks and whites, so I decided to take those and pop them with jewel tones like you can see there, or here's like some fun bright greens. Everything on that quilt on the wall is from my scrap bins, even the small little cornerstones that are solid black. So I didn't hit any of my newer stash or any of the stash that I didn't go out and buy any fabric, and when I back it, when I quilt it, I will be using stuff from my stash too, so it probably doesn't cost me much of anything. Well, I originally bought the fabric, but I didn't have to buy anything new, which is nice. Like I said, this is part of my Working Our Scraps Off YouTube series. It's a series of videos that I make a fun scrappy project, so it's a great way to work off some of your scraps. This is, I believe, either episode 16 or 17. I did not look it up and I can't remember. I did one about a month and a half ago. This might be number 17, but don't quote me there. It'll be on the title if you're curious. I do have a playlist, so you can check them all out and see what other fun projects we've done. We've done other scrappy quilt blocks. We do fun little pillows, that kind of thing. So it's lots of fun. I also have a companion Facebook group called Working Our Scraps Off. You're welcome to join that. Lots of fun. There's almost 6,000 members there, and people share all their beautiful quilts they make, purses, whatever, coats, all kinds of things. So I hope you check it out over there too and join me there. So get out your scraps, decide what color you're going to do, and I'm going to show you how to make this super easy scrappy quilt block and just tell you how to put together a quilt like that. Alright, so I thought I'd show you the block one more time a little bit more up close so you can see all the different scrappy squares and then all the different greens I used on this one. This is for the black background, but I'm going to show you on the white background, so let me put that aside. I might refer to that later. So what you need for this block, very simple, and I just pulled out scraps. You're going to need 8 squares cut 4.5 inches square, so that's 4.5 inches right there. You're going to need 8 of those, and this is of the background fabric. So whatever background, if you want a solid, in this one case it's the black, it's whatever color you're going to want. So you need 8 of those, and then you're going to need 5 pieces of scrap. Now, I use all the same sort of color, the same family of colors. Again, you can do whatever you want. One of the scraps does have to be larger than 4.5 inches because you're going to cut it down to 4.5 inches square. But the rest can all be any shape, any size. You can see these are all just fabrics left over from old projects. One nice thing about this block, it is very easy to change up. So if you want to make a smaller block, this makes a 12.5 inch unfinished block. The tutorial I'm giving you today. Let's say you want a smaller block. Cut these squares 3.5 inches square, and then cut your center square of the color 3.5 inches, and you'll get a 9.5 inch unfinished block. You can cut them 2.5, go even smaller, because I know I have a ton of small scraps. This would make a fun mini too. You could cut these 2.5 inches, and then you'd have a 6.5 inch unfinished block. And finished, of course, it would be 12, and then 9, and then 6 inches. So you can go any size you want to go on this. You can even make it bigger if you wanted, depending on the size of your scraps. But today I'm making 12 inch. I like a bigger block sometimes because I made a big quilt with this, which you'll see in a minute. But so that's what we're going to do. So let's get started with what we do next. So first off, I'm going to decide what I want to be my center. So this one is also 4.5 inches. I think, you know what? I'm doing the paler background. Let's see. I think I might do this one. This actually is fun. This is actually from a grandmother who's long passed away. I kept one of her old sheets, and so this is the last of the sheeting of my grandmother's bed sheets, and it's 100% cotton. I've used it in a lot of Scrappy quilts. But what I'm going to do, so this is going to be my center block. So I want to cut this down to 4.5 inches. All right, so I'm just going to trim this down to 4.5 inches. And I'm going to try and use the plaid, although it doesn't really matter. That's what's so great about scrap quilts, is you don't have to, or at least I don't mind if plaids aren't straight, lines aren't straight, it doesn't really matter. And then I'm just going to rotate it around. I'm going to find that 4.5 inch point on my square ruler. I would definitely recommend using a square ruler for this because we're going to square up these blocks in a second. Line it up here. Here, there's your 4.5 point on there, and then you're just going to trim off those two edges. And there, whoops. Well, I think I need to change my blade in my rotary cutter a little bit. There we go. All right, so there's my 4.5 inch center square, and I'm going to set that aside for right now. And now we're going to start making those points of the friendship star. But first, you need to choose 4. You're going to split the background fabric squares in half. I'm going to use 4 for the outside squares, so those won't have fabric sewn to them. Set those aside, and now we're going to use these 4, and we are going to make these points. So we'll start with this one, and this is it's so easy. So you can do this a couple ways. This is where it's fun. You can play with it. You're going to face them right sides together, and you're going to put them right sides together and sort of like you're going to try to figure out where that how big your triangle is going to be. And this is all by eye. There's no measuring. And I fold it back just to get an idea to make sure that this whole fabric, when folded over, is going to cover that point. That's the most important thing because you're trimming this down to a square, if that makes sense. So like if I put it up here and then folded it over, that wouldn't look right because you're going to have these edges here and then you'd have a little point there. So you want to make sure, one guideline I use is I just kind of overhang it here just a little bit. And then you just sort of eyeball your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that's plenty big. That's plenty big. Now, the other option you can do, and I'm going to do that now. This is a square scrap. Obviously, I use this for something else. You can cut it in half. Now, I will say now you're going to have a bias edge here. And that's one of the things with this project you got to watch a little bit. You can get bias edges because I don't remember, how and when I cut these scraps. But I'm going to go ahead and sew because if you're just careful and sew slowly, it shouldn't be a problem. So this one, I can move out a little bit and I get just a little bit more, a bigger square of, bigger triangle of blue. So I kind of like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press it down. You can pin it if you want. I usually don't. I know I'm notorious. If you watch my videos, I'm kind of notorious for not pinning. And you're just going to use this straight edge here. And so 1/4 inch down here, 1/4 inch seam right there. And then and then I'll show you what we do next. But it's very simple. And then what I do is I'm going to line them all up at once. It just makes it easier for me. And we can do that now so you can see how I do it. So there's one. And let me get another one. So this one, I obviously don't need this piece of fabric. This one I'm not going to cut in half. And it already has a nice straight edge. I do like to start with a straight edge, so I will, if it's a real jagged piece, maybe I used it for some curve piecing or something, I will trim it straight. So this should be okay. This is a nice piece. There we go. I can see I sort of test fold it over, and I know it's going to cover that edge. Press it down. Pin it if you want. Let's try another one. Some are bigger, some are smaller. That's what's so much fun about this. This one's going to be kind of small, I can tell, because it's not real long. The longer it is and the wider, you'll get a much bigger area. So so that's going to be a nice little corner. Let's try it again. All right, so there we go. And that's again what is so fun. It's almost like an improv, and you don't quite know what you're going to end up with until you start sewing them together. And last but not least is this fun sort of 30s repro. I combine all kinds. I have batiks in here. You know, it's just fun. It's just scrappy, and that's what I'm always looking for. All right, let's check one more. That's not bad. Sort of a weird shape. And there we go. Okay, I like that. So press it down, or just hand press it, and then just pin it. And then I'm going to take all of these over to the sewing machine. This again, all of them have a nice straight edge there. You do want to start with that nice straight edge. 1/4 inch seam along there. I'm just going to snip them apart. It's easy. You can do, I mean, I did maybe 10 of these blocks at a time. It's just, you just roll right through them. That's what's so nice about this block. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to trim off this excess, because basically we're going to come in here, fold this over later, press it, and then trim it down to 4.5 inches square. But first you want to get rid of that excess. So you're going to use your ruler, and you're going to line up that 1/4 inch seam, that 1/4 inch, not seam, excuse me, 1/4 inch line on your ruler, right on top of that seam that you sewed. Hopefully you can see that. I always use, here we go, you can probably see it on the back. So there's your seam. All right, but we're going to line up that 1/4 inch marker right there. And you're going to trim off that excess. You can keep that if you really love your scrap quilts and like smaller pieces, you can keep that. And I'm going to do that with all of them. And you can see, this kind of gives you an idea of how big your triangle is going to be. All right, and now I'm going to take them over and press them really quickly open. I press towards that color you just added. It's easier that way, because sometimes the pieces are they're funny shaped. It just makes it easier, I find, to press it towards that the point color that you're using. All right, so these have all been pressed, and now we're going to trim these all down to 4.5 inches square, the same size as those squares you had started with. To do that, you're going to place, let me move all this out of the way so you can see it really well. In fact, I'm going to zoom in the camera just a little bit. All right, so here we go. So you have your 4.5 inch square here. And now you're going to take that ruler, and you're going to find again, that 4.5 inch corner. That's what's nice about these square rulers. It does so much work for you. And you're going to put that point, let me see if I can find a pointer. I'm going to use my seam ripper here. Trusty seam ripper. It comes in handy for everything, right? Put it right here in this corner. This is 4.5. You're going to line up this edge and this edge with that cut square. And then you're going to carefully trim away all of this excess. Yeah, I definitely need to get a new blade for my rotary cutter. So there you go. That's how it ends up looking. So there's one of the squares. Very easy to do, and it's fun because they're all going to be different shapes and sizes. All right, so here are my 4 points of that friendship star, and now we're going to go ahead and start setting up this block. Again, it takes me a while to explain it, but it really is such an easy block to make. So you're going to take that original square in the color that you just that we cut earlier, and then I'm just going to place these wherever you feel like it. No, I honestly don't put too much thought into it. My only rule of thumb for the quilt that I'm going to move this down just a little bit so you can see it better. My only rule of thumb for all of these blocks that I made for the quilt I'm going to show you is that I didn't repeat any of the black and white fabrics, and I didn't repeat any of the color fabrics. I have a lot of scraps, so that helped. So here, make sure I'm putting it the right way. There you go. How much fun is this? So there is my, whoops, wrong way. Okay, there we go. So there's how I'm going to put it together. I'm going to sew the rows, this row, and this row. And what I'm going to do is press, I always like to press to the outside. I like to press to these squares that don't have a seam in them. And then I'll press the inside, press to the outside, and then I'll sew the rows together. But I'll show you all that too. But there you go. That's what that's going to look like. All right, so here we go. There's that one. This one. I don't even remember which side was which, but that's okay. And then this one, and here again is my friendship star. I'm going to move it up a little bit. There you can see it. And now because I pressed these two to the outside and this one to the inside, they're easy to nest when I'm sewing the rows together. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to show you what I mean by nesting. So I'm going to move this up to the camera. So see how I pressed? You can see I pressed this way and then this way. And nesting means, if you can see those line up, it's kind of hard with the colors, but that seam will be nice. And then I'm just going to pin right there on that seam. Get a pin right here. And right here. Again, you can kind of see that's sort of, they nest together like that. They're kind of, it's hard to describe, but they just kind of push together, which is nice when you press them that way. And then I'm just going to pin, and then I'm going to sew 1/4 inch seam allowance down that edge, and then when that's sewn, press it open, and then I'm going to add this other one too. Alrighty, here is the block. I love this block. Sometimes it's fun just to do something like this, a little improv, using up scraps. I love using up my scraps. This is a great working our scraps off project. There's my Wonky friendship star. So easy, great way to use up all those black and whites that I have. You could do this any colors in the rainbow, and you just have a fun time doing it. If you want a dark light background solid or something, and then maybe patterns in the middle, whatever you want, whatever scraps you have. I know you saw at the beginning I have a lot of scraps, so this is great for that kind of thing. So I'm finishing up this quilt top. I'm having 6 of these squares across and then 7 squares down, plus I have a sashing that I put in, again, all scraps. Every single piece in this quilt top that I'm making is from scraps. So here's that block we just made, and basically what I did is I alternated. I'm going to do a little rolling, a little pulling of this. I alternated between the light and the dark. So here's my first block. You can see that sashing on the left side. And then I put in a different one. There's an orange one, another one. Every one has this, the sashing. My sashing is cut 12.5 inches, the length of the block, by 1.5 inches, because I just wanted a small sashing there in the between. The quilt was getting kind of big. So there's a lime green, there's a purple. So I'm going to end this one with this light one that we just made. But what I want to do first is we're going to attach it here. And again, I don't even think about which way to attach it. It doesn't really matter. I have the sashing there, so I need to add one piece of sashing to this end. I'm going to give this another press. So I'm going to add that one last piece of sashing on this end, and you'll see how it ends up. And then I'm going to attach this to this row, and then attach this final row to my quilt top, and then I will be done. All right, so there we have it. There's my final block for this quilt. So then you start, this is the one end, and then I'm just going to roll it back again, and then we're going to add this row, this last row to the bottom of the quilt, because I kind of planned it out that way. So here's that strip that I did earlier, and there I added that sashing strip to the top of it, and now I'm going to add it to the bottom of this section. Like so. You can see all the different colors. I'm going to pull this along just so you can see what I mean. So here's a purple and a blue, I'm good with that. Here's orange and yellow, good with that. See, if this was yellow, then I wouldn't really want that there. that's just me. I have this weird habit of, especially when I make a scrap quilt, I like it. The scrappier the better. There, this one's purple. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. Straighten it out a little bit. Just so much fun. Oh, I love scrap quilts. I mean, this is really my favorite type of quilting, honestly, is scrap quilting. So there you go. So now I'm just gonna, again, pin along here, add this to the bottom, keeping that, you know, white, black, white for the background to make it sort of a little more interesting. And then when I come back, I'm gonna show you the whole quilt all together. All right, so I have finished the quilt. I've hung it up on the wall. It's the same one you saw at the beginning of the video. You can see all of the fun different colors. This is a big quilt. It's 79 by 92. You can see the sashing and the cornerstones and all the different colors. It's too big for my space, so I actually, I have a wall behind where I shoot my videos, so it's way too big, but I'm gonna pan down really quickly. Well, not really quickly, but so you can see the whole thing. And my messy floor, there you go. It's even too long, but this is a nice big scrappy quilt, and I just love the way it turned out. So easy, so fun, and a great scrap buster. All right, so what do you think? I just love the way this turned out. Scrap quilts make me so happy. Scrap quilting makes me happy. I do hope you join my Working Our Scraps Off Facebook group. Subscribe to my channel. I try to do a video for this project, for this series, excuse me, maybe once every month, once every other month, it depends. But this was a biggie, so this took a little while to do. Work those scraps off. There's so many wonderful things you can do out there, so many projects, and if you're like me, you have shelves full of scraps that you need to work off. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.